Hello, fellow law nerds. Welcome to another episode of Boom Lawyered, a Rewire News Group podcast hosted by the legal journalism team that just isn't ready for another Supreme Court term that is going to unravel democracy and potentially life as we know it. I'm Imani Candy, Rewire News Group's co-chief content officer.
Yikes.
It got dark really fast.
That went dark, like right from the jump. Anyway, I'm Jess Pieklo, Rewire News Group's other co-chief content officer. Rewire News Group is the one and only home for expert repro journalism that inspires you to call a friend to get through the SCOTUS season because, as Imani said, it's already dark. And the Boom Lawyered podcast is part of that mission. So a big thanks to our subscribers and a welcome to our new listeners and viewers.
So it's time for our new segment that we call What the Fuck is Going On? Because literally, what the fuck is going on? So Bari Weiss, right? Bari Weiss, who is the opinion columnist from the New York Times, turned self-styled free speech anti-woke martyr, has been named editor-in-chief of CBS News. Editor-in-chief.
She has.
She's most known for quitting her job at the New York Times. And to be clear, she was book review editor. She's never done any real reporting. She was a book review editor and sometimes opinion columnist. She quit because she claimed that she was being bullied by her colleagues in an illiberal environment, basically because she refused to bend the knee to their woke agenda.
Right. The famously woke New York Times.
The famously woke New York Times, right? She saw Roxane Gay in an elevator probably and was like, what's going on? There are Black people here, right? And so she ended up leaving the New York Times and founded the Free Press, which is basically the MAGA newspaper, right?
Yeah.
Where she rails against woke culture and basically, she's just like the cancel culture queen. And here's what's hilarious. Marisa Cabas, who is an independent journalist, she runs The Handbasket. She's great. You should follow her, subscribe if you can. She posted one of the email that Bari Weiss sent to the entire staff, like the "Hi, it's me" email. It basically read like she had been like, what should I write if I've just been named CBS editor-in-chief and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing into ChatGPT? Like it was all like, we're going to become the most trusted news source and we're going to win and we're going to make CBS the best news organization in the whole world. And then she said, and I quote, "I'm going to approach it the way any reporter would, with an open mind, a fresh notebook, and an urgent deadline."
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
A reporter now. She's a reporter.
She's a reporter now. She sounds like fucking Harriet the Spy. Like a fresh notebook and a tomato and mayonnaise sandwich. Like, what are we doing, people? We're also recording this on October 7th, which, you know, the Supreme Court just opened its term yesterday. And apparently, like, it was her first day of work. And on the 9 a.m. call with the entire newsroom, she signed off with, "Let's go do fucking news." What is happening, America? Like, what are we doing?
Let's go do some news, Imani. We're doing the news.
I'm pretty sure she watched all of Newsroom, you know, that old Aaron Sorkin ridiculous show with Jeff Daniels. Like, I think she thinks that she is Jeff Daniels in Newsroom, I think.
Yeah, she like warmed herself up to the soundtrack of Newsies ahead of time.
Newsies. She's out there in like a page boy cap, like, oh, Christ. What do you have for me, Jess?
My news piece is not nearly so fun at all. It's actually way more in line with the apocalyptic opening that you had for the Supreme Court term. So 404 Media is reporting that the Johnson County Sheriff's Office in Texas searched the nationwide network of flock cameras in order to locate a woman they alleged had self-administered an abortion. So, yikes. Cops told 404 Media that they were concerned about the woman's safety. Guess what, Imani? That was a lie.
Of course it was.
Cops lie all the time, right?
All the time.
That was not true. It turns out that the police were searching the AI-assisted license plate surveillance tool as part of a quote-unquote death investigation into the death of a fetus. The results were then part of an arrest warrant put together against the woman's partner, who was arrested for allegedly abusing and threatening her at gunpoint the day she took abortion pills. So like I said, my story is way less fun
Yeah, yours
than
isn't fun.
Monty's.
Let's go back to mine.
Like, let's go back to making fun of Bari Weiss.
Yeah.
That's much better, right?
Yeah.
But seriously, this is alarming for all of the reasons, right? The surveillance state for people who have the capacity to get pregnant and give birth is here. It's been here for a while, but it's here in new and different and terrifying ways. And it's clear that it's not a question of if, but it's a question of when law enforcement are going to yoke some person up for having an abortion. They are looking for it. They are bloodthirsty for it right now. And they just want to perp walk someone around abortion.
And this is Texas, right?
Yeah.
So remember Liz Herrera?
Uh-huh.
Like they tried to charge her with something that wasn't even a crime. And they were like, oh, whoops, our bad. It was like a trial balloon. And that was what, 2022? I think it was right around Dobbs. I would not be surprised if Texas is the first state that actually ends up passing an abortion law that criminalizes the person who gets the abortion.
Which would really bring the legal story full circle, right? Considering Roe versus Wade came out of Texas.
Yeah, Texas has been mad about losing Roe for a really long time, and now this is what we get.
So the news remains bad on that part. You know what else remains bad, Imani?
I'm going to go with the Supreme Court.
Yes, correct. For $500, the Supreme Court. It's really bad. So, as Imani said, we're recording this on October 7th. That is the day that the Supreme Court hears arguments in Chiles v. Salazar, a case that challenges Colorado's 2019 ban on conversion therapy. The case has been brought by the Christian nationalist litigation firm, the Alliance Defending Freedom.
Alliance Defending Freedom represents Kaylee Chiles, a Christian therapist who claims that Colorado's ban is an unconstitutional viewpoint-based speech restriction. She sometimes works with clients who want to discuss issues that she says, quote, implicate Christian values about human sexuality and the treatment of their own body. And although Chiles, quote, never promises that she can solve issues relating to gender identity and sexual orientation, she, quote, believes clients can accept the bodies that God has given them and find peace.
She claims that the law violates her First Amendment rights to free speech and to freely exercise her religion. She says she has a First Amendment right as a licensed counselor to engage in and provide counseling consistent with her and her clients' sincerely held religious beliefs.
And as friend of the podcast, Madiba Denny pointed out for a piece that she published in Balls and Strikes, that's kind of like saying medical doctors have a First Amendment right to recommend that their patients smoke a pack of cigarettes a day.
We love Madiba. She's exactly right. In fact, we interviewed her about her book, The Originalism Trap, in the summer of 2024 for our inaugural summer sessions. You should definitely go check out that episode. She's brilliant and consistently saying very funny and on the money things like having your doctor recommend smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
We got to point out at the outset, before we really even get any further into this, that ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom, are a bunch of fucking liars.
Oh, yes.
So Mark Joseph Stern did a short and sweet little interview for Slate, like a podcast interview for Slate. I read the transcript and, went back and read some of the briefs and stuff. And he's right. ADF could not find any evidence of harm to kids being denied the opportunity to have a licensed therapist try to convince them to change their gender identity or sexual orientation. There was no evidence that there is any harm that Colorado's conversion therapy ban law is causing. So what did they use for evidence? A bunch of anonymous Reddit posts claiming that people's kids have been harmed because they couldn't find someone to perform conversion therapy on them.
I'm sorry. That's absurd. Okay. Yeah. It's not out of the ordinary for ADF here. After all, they argued in Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, that's the mifepristone case, that mifepristone is super dangerous and causes all these complications. And their citation for that claim, if I recall correctly, was anonymous complaints on an anti-abortion online forum.
Yeah, really. It was like people going on to abortionsucks.com and Miffy's the reason why my dad died or whatever, .blogspot.net and being like,
.net!
And being like, well, I mean, yeah, the studies say that mifepristone's super safe, but like mifepristone killed my father. So clearly there are harms untold that the people are lying to you about, that the FDA is lying to you about. So annoying. But it gets even worse when it comes to the ADF, right? The Guardian has reported that ADF misrepresented the research of LGBTQ plus scholars opposed to conversion therapy, including a dead researcher.
What?
Yeah. According to The Guardian, two experts that ADF relied on say that ADF had, quote, profoundly misrepresented their research, which discussed the psychological damage of conversion therapy, end quote. And ADF misrepresented a deceased researcher's research. And so that deceased researcher's family told The Guardian that they were, quote, deeply disturbed by the distortion of that researcher's work. So the not dead researcher, his name is Clifford Roski. He's a University of Utah professor of constitutional law and civil rights. He told The Guardian, quote, this is the most upsetting use of my scholarship that has ever happened in my career. And, quote, it's upsetting because this is lethally dangerous to LGBTQ plus kids. This is a man who has worked to ban conversion therapy, but ADF is citing his research, misrepresenting it in support of conversion therapy.
I didn't expect much from ADF, but doing a weekend at Bernie's on the scholarship is even beyond the pale for these folks.
Yeah.
And like we joke about it, but you know, this guy Roski is exactly right. Like it is upsetting in and of itself, but it is a lethal practice that they are engaged in right now.
Colorado's law is similar to more than 20 other state laws that very narrowly and specifically prohibit state licensed mental health professionals from attempting to change a minor's sexual orientation or gender identity. Now, this is important. The Colorado ban does not apply to non-licensed religious counselors. That means that people can still get faith-based conversion therapy if they want it. They just can't get it from a medical professional who is licensed by the state.
Correct.
They have to get it from a minister. In addition, the Colorado conversion therapy ban very clearly includes a clause that allows therapists to help young people explore their sexual orientation or gender identity in an ethical way.
And this is such an important distinction. By law, state licensed therapists are already allowed to help youth explore their identity. They just can't pressure or direct kids towards a specific outcome of no longer being gay, right? And religious counselors can be religious counselors, and they're not subject to the ban. So this is another example of the Christian right trying to bend all of the rules to their favor. So, Chiles challenged the Colorado ban and lost. The 10th Circuit Court of Appeals disagreed with her argument and claims that the law targeted her speech and religious rights. Instead, the 10th Circuit held the ban targets conduct and not speech. It reasoned that Colorado enacted the law based on the evidence of harms of conversion therapy as part of its efforts to regulate the healthcare profession, and that the law primarily regulates therapists' conduct rather than their speech. Chiles petitioned the Supreme Court last November asking the justices to hear her case, and this March, the court announced it would.
Chiles and Alliance Defending Freedom are arguing that governments like Colorado, quote, do not have a freer hand to regulate speech simply because the speaker is licensed or giving specialized advice, close quote. And Chiles and ADF have warned that the 10th Circuit's rule has devastating real-world consequences. In jurisdictions with counseling restrictions, she wrote, many young people cannot receive the care they seek and critically need. Again, there is no evidence that there are any children or young people who are trying to seek this care from licensed medical professionals and are unable to, and that's why they're relying on Reddit posts. So Colorado's response is a real straightforward defense of the law. Attorneys for the state have argued that the ban on conversion therapy was based on, quote, overwhelming evidence that efforts to change a child's sexual orientation or gender identity are unsafe and ineffective. And Colorado's response distinguished Chiles' counseling of her patient from a quote, chat with one's college roommate, right? Colorado emphasizes that the two scenarios should receive different protections under the First Amendment. That makes sense.
Right.
Colorado said, unlike laypersons, those who choose to practice as health professionals are required, among various other responsibilities, to provide treatment to their patients consistent with their field standard of care.
Right. Straightforward. If you're licensed by the state, you got to meet certain minimum requirements, right? ADF hates it because if ADF and Chiles are successful in convincing the conservative justices at SCOTUS that Colorado's ban targets speech, right, and not the conduct around it, then Colorado's ban and the 22 other states that have similar laws on the books will likely be struck down.
And the question that I would usually cede to you as the Cassandra of the courts, but now it's like they're just telegraphing what they're doing by the very fact that they have taken this case, right?
Correct.
So how will the case go? I'm going to tell you.
Yeah,
this
do
is
it.
Another in a
Lay it
long
on me.
line of challenges brought by Alliance Defending Freedom that reinforce the Christian persecution complex into law. And we know that Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, and Barrett love them a nice Christian persecution story.
They sure
So there's
do.
4 votes right out of the gates for ADF and Chiles, regardless of what the Colorado law actually says or does, and regardless of whether or not there are actually any people who have been harmed by the fact that the law exists.
Yeah.
And then you've got Justice Kegstan, our good friend Brad McBeer, right? He's a Me Too, pick me, try hard. So he's going to join Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, and Barrett, just assuming if he's even awake during the arguments, right?
Yeah. Open question there. Open question there.
I'm going to have to take a little sidebar, though.
Okay.
Because in order to really talk about how this case is going to go, we need to talk about a case that we covered way back in 2018, NIFLA v. Becerra. Do you remember NIFLA v. Becerra?
I just had the Wayne's World like
exactly.
I disassociated for a brief moment when you said the words 2018. It was really that long ago.
18.
It can't possibly
like
be so.
What in the world? And we've been podcasting this whole time.
We're just gonna podcast right through it.
Honestly, yeah. Instead of posting through it, we're podcasting through it.
Absolutely. Oh, I remember NIFLA v. Becerra, but I guarantee you there are folks who have probably been on this journey this whole time with us who could use a refresher at least.
Yes. So, for those who do not recall, NIFLA, National Institutes for Family Life Advocates, v. Becerra, is the 2018 case where Clarence Thomas and the court basically said that crisis pregnancy centers, these fake clinics, have a First Amendment right to lie.
Yep.
California passed a simple law. If you're not a medical clinic, you got to say so. If you are, you got to tell patients that abortion and birth control exist. If you don't, then you got to tell them that they can go get it from these state-run facilities. That's it. But Clarence Thomas, being Clarence Thomas, twisted the First Amendment into a shield for this deception, claiming that it was compelled speech. Now, the NIFLA v. Becerra case provides good arguments for both sides in Chiles v. Salazar. On one hand, NIFLA said that speech is not unprotected merely because it is uttered by professionals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that cuts in favor of conversion therapy, right? It's not unprotected speech just because a licensed therapist says it. On the other hand, NIFLA also said that states are permitted to regulate professional conduct even though that conduct incidentally involves speech. But that's really the rub here. Is the speech incidental to the conduct of providing medical care? Now, ultimately, this court is going to use the First Amendment in whatever way will most protect the delicate fifis of Christian evangelicals, right? They're going to weaponize free speech in order to protect harm and use the First Amendment as a shield for cruelty.
This is one of those moments where Jack Phillips walked so that Kaylee Chiles could fly, right?
Oh,
like
God.
we go from Masterpiece Cake Shop where, Jack Phillips does not want to bake a cake for a same-sex couple, argues a First Amendment. They're being mean to me. The state of Colorado is targeting me because I'm a Christian. Argument that the court absolutely buys hook, line, and sinker. To 303 Creatives, which is a woman who isn't even in the business of creating wedding websites, but she might be one day. And therefore, she needs protection against creating websites for same-sex marriages.
And I have to interrupt just for a second, because if you want to talk about a fake case, right? Chiles v. Salazar, as Mark Joseph Stern pointed out, is a fake case because this woman hasn't even said that she wants to forcibly change anyone's sexual orientation or gender identity.
Yeah.
Right? There's a new argument about standing that sort of emerged only recently that makes this case fake in and of itself. 303 Creative, another ADF case, was also fake. Lori Smith didn't make wedding websites. Lori Smith never had an actual real gay couple ask her to do so.
Because she didn't make them. How could she?
She didn't make them. But no, get this. Do you remember that it turned out that the gay couple that asked her to make the wedding website, that couple didn't exist? Couple didn't exist.
I totally forgot about that. But
I
you're
lost
right.
my mind for a full month after 303 Creative came down because ADF just is making up plaintiffs, making up facts, and the Supreme Court is using ADF as a launching pad for its most Christian nationalist, theocratic fucking bullshit. And I find it just enraging. But breathe in
and out.
And out. It's all going to be fine.
Yeah.
So
re-regulate.
Jess, can you answer me one question?
I'll try.
We both live in Colorado.
Yeah.
I've been in Colorado for 3 years now. Can you believe that?
That's amazing.
That's amazing. I love this state. We are the most progressive state in the union right now. True story. Because even California is trying to kick homeless people out of their encampments and put them in jail. So is Colorado spawning all of these cases because we are progressive and ADF is just targeting us? And how do we get them to stop?
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, Colorado really has become ripe for ADF plaintiffs with a Christian grievance to bear. Some of it is litigation strategy around trying to create circuit splits back when that was a novel, like the course of things to do, right? We talked about that in the Supreme Court preview episode, that the Chiles case is a circuit split case. And it used to be that those were the times that the court entered in and settled a dispute. It wasn't like, take up Texas's 6-week ban on the shadow docket and let it, take effect basically under cover of darkness. And those are the days that we live in now. So I think maybe it's a hangover of this because, again, the Chiles case has been around in the litigation for a while. Colorado wasn't enforcing its conversion therapy ban. It was saying, look, we understand their First Amendment arguments against it. It had been held in abeyance, as the court was saying. So
held in abeyance. Ooh, I haven't heard a held in abeyance in the wild for a while. That was nice.
Do what I can to keep it real in these streets, Imani. With a good old held in abeyance. But I don't know. I mean, I think that there's also, as much as we love it being a, progressive stronghold in many parts of Colorado, there are also some deep pockets of Christian power culture here that, I think that that's probably very true. I mean, we got Focus on the Family in Colorado Springs. I got to point this out. The licensed therapy part is really important. Chiles can do all the biblical therapy she wants, right? Just not as a licensed therapist in the state of Colorado. Because what does that licensure signify? That this person is trusted and operating based on certain minimum standards that the state signs off on. And that's the important part here. These folks like Chiles want legitimacy of operating within a civil system without any of the responsibilities that come from doing so.
And we have to be clear here. Conversion therapy isn't therapy.
Correct.
It's junk science, and it has been discredited for decades. Every major medical and psychological association says it causes harm, especially to kids who are already struggling, right? So when people like Chiles talk about helping children accept their bodies, what they're really doing is reinforcing shame and self-hatred. Mm-hmm. That's not care. That's child abuse.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question for you.
Okay.
We have this deconstruction era theme for the season.
Yeah.
How does this case fit into that theme?
Oh, I like a good setup question like this. Thank you. I mean, as an Alliance Defending Freedom case, it is very clearly designed to upend further the relationship between religion and government. State sanctioned services like licensed counseling should not be and historically have not been vehicles for religious proselytizing, right? A multicultural democracy can't survive when it prioritizes one religious belief or practice over another. That's exactly the point for Christian nationalists like Alliance Defending Freedom and its supporters at SCOTUS. That's what they're attacking, right? We have talked about this theme on this podcast lo these many years, to quote my friend Imani Candy, right? NIFLA versus Becerra 2018. Before that, Hobby Lobby. I mean, the consistent ways in which organizations like Alliance Defending Freedom are trying to rewrite the Constitution to protect and insulate their particular worldview from attack and critique, while also taking all the benefits of government support in terms of financing, tax benefits, all of it. Deconstruction era is the great grift of the right.
You're absolutely correct. And this isn't about protecting religion. It's about forcing religion into state regulated spaces.
Yes.
ADF wants licensed professionals to use their credentials to push Christian beliefs and call it therapy. Then, when the state says, no, 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 wait a minute, you can't do that, they pretend that it's persecution. And part of me thinks that they keep coming to Colorado because they got that really nice language in Masterpiece Cake Shop about how Colorado was being really, really mean to Christians. So they can always just go and point back at that and say, well, you already said that Colorado was being dicks to Christians. And so this is just another example of that. They don't want these kids to be able to change their gender identity and sexual orientation through conversion therapy. That's not what it is, right? It's just the state of Colorado setting basic standards to keep kids safe. And ADF can't stand that. Yeah. And you can bet that the Sixth Federalist Society, jamokes on the court, can't stand that either.
And even though it's early in the argument cycle, I mean, this case, they argued on the second day of the term, so it's going to be a long one, folks. We still don't expect a decision in this case until June, probably, just given the nature of what's at stake. And Imani and I'll get into more of the arguments in our next episode as well, because there are some doozies.
There really are some doozies. I listened to some of it this morning before we had to literally hop on the horn and record this podcast. And it's an exercise in just sadness for me. I remember when I used to look forward to oral arguments, and now I do look forward to the liberals speaking. And I know that, and I pray and I hope that their dissents will become majority opinions in the future. But right now, watching these conservatives just gin up these controversies and then rule in ways that harm marginalized people, that stick it to queer kids, whether it's Scrametti, whether it's Mahmoud, whether it's Chiles v. Salazar, there is an ongoing onslaught against queer people and queer kids specifically. And as a newly out queer myself, it really fucking pisses me off. It always has, but it pisses me off in a way that it hasn't before.
The audacity to do so and claim victimhood at the same time is just so much. And we won't get too much into the arguments because, like Imani said, they were going on while we were getting ready to record. But I will preview a little bit where Neil Gorsuch is like, how dare you suggest that there's no harm here to Miss Chiles, who has never faced a prosecution threat under Colorado's law, not once, nor has any other therapist, because as I said, it's been held in abeyance. And he got all uppity and was like, no, how dare you make that claim? Sir, anonymous tips in a Reddit forum are not a credible threat of prosecution. Anyway.
I'm going to jump in real quick and ask you to just explain to our listeners what held in abeyance means.
Basically, the state of Colorado putting a pause on enforcement of its own law. It said, we understand there's controversy around it. We are just going to put this in our pocket for right now until some of that cools down.
Yeah, that's it. So what do we have on deck? Looking forward, what's going on in the kitchen,
Good
as
stuff.
they say?
Good stuff. What do we got, Imani?
We've got California redistricting and why it's part of the larger fight for reproductive autonomy with Jody Hicks from Planned Parenthood, California.
That's going to be a great episode. That is after this. Also, to look forward to is another episode of Bitch Listen. Imani, this is so exciting. Ellie Mistal is your guest of honor this time. And what are you folks talking about?
Talking about how the Constitution is garbage. Talking about how the Constitution could do stuff for Black people, but it's not because of basically white grievance. We talked a lot about how Ketanji Brown Jackson is awesome. Then we talked video games for a bit. So it was really fun.
I love this. So yes, a new episode of Bitch Listen dropping in your Boom Lawyered feeds. And please, 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 if you have not done so already, subscribe to Imani's new newsletter. You get to see adorable pictures of her dogs, pithy thoughts from Imani herself.
I love a pithy thought.
I mean, it's your whole jam. So please do. It's a great, robust little content package that we got going on there for her.
Well, thank you, Jessica.
It's about time, too.
And on that note, if you would like to talk to Jess or me about any of these things, anything and everything, you can find me on Blue Sky, although now I have migrated to Black Sky. Wow. So I am now angryblacklady.blacksky.app. Jess is Hegemommy, HEGEMOMMY.bluesky.social. And you should follow rewirenewsgroup.com on Blue Sky, on Instagram, on Threads, on TikTok. And you should subscribe to our YouTube channel so every time an episode drops, you can see our pretty faces. And on that note, what are we going to do, Jess?
We're going to see you on the tubes, folks.
We'll see you on the tubes, folks. This is Boom Lawyered, a Rewire News Group podcast produced and engineered by Chapter 4 and available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts.